is the master of the whole genre. He
He was.
definitely.
He was.
I miss his show greatly.
He led the parade.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the best shows, and what I kind of wanted to talk to you about this evening, among other things, is one of my favorite shows that I heard you do was the it's part of the Living Moon, but it was the soul harvesting from the moon, and we're kind of just like an incubator here on Earth.
Yes. Well, first of all, there's a billion Earths identical to this one. If you were to go to any of those other ones, you would walk around. The only thing would be different would be the streets would be a little different and the addresses would be different, but everything else would be the same. Now,
Wow.
Earth, all these billions of Earths are essentially a prison. And the reason we're here is because in our past life, and we've all lived hundreds of lives spanning hundreds of thousands of years, in our last life, we did something wrong. And we're sent down to Earth to pound rocks, essentially to learn how to live our lives with integrity and without envy, hate, or greed, and to express our love to each of our family members each and every day. There's nothing else. Nothing else counts. Not the amount of money you make, not the amount of girls you make, not anything except living your life with integrity and without envy, hate, or greed, and expressing your love to your family. Now, if you succeed, and what happens is when you die, the blood drains from your body, and the blood is what holds the soul in your body.
Huh.
And so the soul comes out, and it's directed to the fourth dimension, which is what we call heaven, but it's hundreds of times, thousands of times more delightful. And what we do is you're met by the person you believe in. If you believe in Jesus, if you believe in Buddha, if you believe in Allah, and in my case, I believe in the Great Pumpkin, they're the ones that meet you
Right.
when you leave Earth, and they take you to meet or re-meet all of the people that you've known in your previous hundreds of lives. And you get a half an hour to an hour with all of them, renewing all old acquaintances, remembering great times. And then you are led to a room where you have a life review. And in the life review, you're shown a three-dimensional recording of every second of your life. There is nothing that they miss. The people are so shocked to find out that no matter what secret they think they have, E.T. knows everything, and it's all recorded just like in a movie. So what they want to find out is if you learned how to live your life with integrity and without envy, hate, or greed, so that they can make a decision. And I don't know exactly who makes the decision, but so that they can make a decision on whether you have to come back to Earth and pound more rocks, which is essentially a euphemism for learning how to live your life with envy, hate, or greed, or whether you get to stay in the fourth dimension, which is heaven. Now, if you get to stay in heaven, you get to spend a couple of lifetimes there, and then you can make the decision on whether you want to go to a higher dimension, to the fifth dimension, to the sixth dimension, or anywhere up. The number of dimensions is infinite. And these are concepts that are very difficult for humans to grasp because they can't understand that they've lived hundreds of lives. They can't understand how their entire existence has been recorded, and they can't understand how the number of dimensions can be infinite. Basically, the universe is infinite. All this stuff that our scientists and NASA put out about it being the Big Bang, all that stuff is just pure BS. The universe is infinite. It's always been there, and it always will be there. And it's so big that there's no way that we humans can grasp how big it is. You can't measure it in miles. You can't measure it in time. It's infinite.
Right.
So basically, that's what happens. And there are several soul transmission stations, both on Earth and on the Moon. And depending on where you're going in your next lifetime, is which transmission station takes over. Now, several years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, Richard Hoagland came out with a video called Moon Mars Connection Part 2. And in it, he showed the tower that's in the middle of Mosting A, which is dead center of the moon. In other words, the moon is in rotational lock, and it always has one side pointed towards Earth. We never get to see the other side except for the pictures that NASA takes. And I have a real nice collection of pictures of the far side. People call the far side the dark side. It's not dark. It's just as light as the near side. It's just at different times. There's, I think, 13 and a half days of light, 13 and a half days of darkness. Their sunset lasts 3 days. The moon has a breathable atmosphere. It's only about 15,000 feet high, so the people that say, oh, we can't have an atmosphere because we can't see the occultation, all that's nonsense. It has a breathable atmosphere. The density is about equal to 18,000 feet on Earth here, and the gravity is 70% that of Earth. All this 6%, or 6 times the 1/6 the gravity of Earth is pure nonsense. It has 70%, and there's millions of humans that live on the moon, both on the near and the far side. They don't come from Earth. They come from somewhere else, and I don't know where that is. ET occupies the underground part of the moon where they have their laboratories and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's full of stuff, just like Earth. Earth has, as unbelievable as it may sound, 1,000 civilizations within the center, within the underground of Earth. And people say, "Oh no, that's impossible. It's hot. There's molten, dirt and steel and all that in the center of the Earth would be too hot." No, it's not too hot, and there's many civilizations that live there.
Right. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface as far as drilling or anything on the Earth.
Drilling and the sea is occupied by many ET civilizations, and our submarines see them every once in a while. There is a force field around all of these places undersea that keeps the submarines away, but the Navy knows a lot where they are. Many of them are, and it's extremely interesting. The Navy knows a lot more than they let on. For instance, they were on the Titanic 3 years before they let what's his name?
Ballard.
What was
Ballard?
the guy's name?
Ballard, wasn't it?
Ballard. Before they let Ballard into it, and what they did is they asked Ballard to photograph one of the nuclear submarines that was allegedly lost in the Azores. And he went to that place and photographed some debris, but it wasn't a nuclear submarine. It was pure BS. But anyway, he got that film for the Navy, and they allowed him to go into the Titanic, which they had been in and researched for 3 years before
Not surprising.
So one of the things that the Navy has, I have a friend who has just written a book about the Virginia-class submarines. It's an excellent book. It's written by Jim Goodall, and I think it's out now. It's fantastic pictures, fantastic history. But what he didn't know was all submarines in the past 50 years and all naval craft have been outfitted with fusion engines. Now, we're told that that fusion won't be available for another decade or so.
At least.
You're right. Last Wednesday, there was a story that the Skunk Works, Lockheed Skunk Works, had made an important breakthrough on fusion, and it looks like within the decade we would be able to have engines. In fact, they've been in all Navy craft and aircraft carriers and fast attack subs for the past 15 years. And the Virginia-class subs has the fusion engine. Now, the personnel on the submarines are told that they have a new type of nuclear reactor, but they don't even hint that it's fusion. So only a very few people know that it's fusion. Now, the important part of fusion is it has 10 or 15 times the power of a regular nuclear reactor, even more than that. And it's smaller, so they can put 2 or 3. On the larger aircraft carriers, they have 5. The reason they have 5 engines is the demand for power. And the reason there's a demand for power is the skin on the new aircraft carriers and the new subs, including the Virginia class and the fast attack subs, are a material called D.D. And if you're writing it down, it's not capital D.D, it's lowercase D.D. It's made in space, and it's very thin. It transmits electricity with relatively ease, and what it does is they use it for the skin on the various craft, and when it's powered up, it keeps the water 5 to 10 centimeters away from the hull, which allows aircraft carriers to do 125 knots. It allows submarines to do about the same speed because they don't have the drag of the ocean against the hull. And it's brought down by a craft that's 10 times bigger than a 747. Miles Johnson, who happened to be a radio tower engineer, and he happened to be on top of one of the towers in Scotland when this craft came out of orbit and landed near Machrihanish. Now, Machrihanish has always been a place for secret airplanes. The SR-71 was there for a while, and all our newer, really fast airplanes are based there. It's all underground, and the Navy has a way of putting transmitters around an airfield and making the airfield disappear. Wherever they put it, for instance, if they have a huge runway in the desert, they put these transmitters around the airfield, and it makes it look exactly like the desert. If it's in a tree or wooded area, it makes it look exactly like a wooded area. And when an airplane lands there, they're vectored by radar, and when they get down to about 200 feet, they turn this off so that the pilot can see how to land. The pilots that have done that say, John, it's just like a zipper. They unzip the landscape, and there's the runway. And you land and taxi in, and then they zip it back up. And so I said, well, how do they keep it a secret? And they said, well, they tell everybody up there that it's done with mirrors. They don't know anything about these transmitters or anything like that. So the closest one that I know of is 44 miles south of Wendover, across the Utah-Nevada border, in a desert area. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but that's the airfield where they keep all the black triangles, and it has these transmitters that keep the ground disappeared, or people flying over couldn't see anything. And we found out about this about 20 years ago when two friends of mine got together. We were all researching the Blackbird, the ISR-71, the E-12, the U-2, and other airplanes, the F-117A, and we're all interested in that stuff. And we were told by one of our friends who flew F-15s out of Alamogordo that he saw a 12,000-foot runway 30 miles northeast of Alamogordo. He described it. He drew a map of it. And John Andrews, who was vice president of testers, and Jim Goodall drove down there. They spent 2 weeks driving back and forth, and they never found it. And we were trying to figure out how they made that runway disappear.